Welcome to Civil War Digital Digest. I'm Will. Thanks to the support from the team at Gettysburg National Battlefield, they've permitted us to be back here on the park, and we have another story coming to you from a new book. It's exciting because this is the fourth book in the series, Faces of Union Soldiers. Every other time you've seen us with Matt Barters, and he's talked about his co-author, Joe Stahl. Today, I get to be with Joe, and we're going to meet one of the men from the new book. Joe, tell us about the new book and tell us who we're going to meet.
Well, we decided to try Gettysburg. We had done Antietam, which obviously both where we are guides in that. And then we did Fredericksburg. And it was like the publisher was saying, do Gettysburg. And we want to do a part of Gettysburg that's not as visited, not because it's not important, but because of access and the publicity of Little Round Top. So we decided to focus on 12th Corps on Culps Hill, where we're standing.
Fantastic. Well, where are we standing? What is this?
This is the monument to the 137th New York. They were on the right end of the brigade line, put up a very gallant fight, had to redeploy when most of the division moved out on the evening of the 2nd, and they were facing a significant counterattack. And the thing that saved them, that they write about in a lot of their reports, is the fact that General Greene, the division commander, had ordered everybody to make entrenchments, put walls down, cut down trees, give us a defensive position. And they used that significantly to their advantage because they were badly outnumbered.
Great. Well, the 137th is here in entrenchments. Who of the regiment do we meet today?
Although the image is taken from later on when he was promoted, became a second lieutenant, and his name is William Schofield. He had mustered in '62 with the unit. Eventually he's going to be a lieutenant and be appointed to the staff of David Ireland, who is the colonel of the 137th at the time of Gettysburg.
Well, let's wait for that for the future, and certainly Ireland's name goes with the 137th. What is Schofield doing here at Gettysburg?
He's a courier. He's carrying messages for the colonel, the major, whatever, back and forth, contact with higher headquarters.
So what do we know about his service here?
He's here. That's the most important thing. His service record, so he's here. As I alluded to earlier, there's several notes that identify him as serving as a courier at this time. So he's running around. He's probably running back and forth. And remember, the 137th, when the attack comes, ends up having the right flank pulled back. So I've now got an L-shaped unit. So I suspect there's a fair amount of back and forth. What's the left end doing versus what the right end is doing? And the communications cross the regiment.
So the 137th has refused their flank.
Right
How does
flank.
that affect Schofield?
Probably means he's got running on a diagonal behind the two wings, as opposed to if they were in a straight linear line, he might have been going just back and forth. Now he's got to go across the hill, so to speak. And you can see the hill line right here. They're facing that way and down that way. And of course, today we have all kinds of trees, which weren't here in 1862 to block the vision. So much better field of fire. And that's going to be one of his concerns. The other is obviously going to be ammunition. Who's running out? Who's got supplies? Can we get it from the guys on the ground? Or do we just stand by and wait for bayonets?
Is he wounded here?
No. He's one of the fortunate ones. He's never wounded in his service.
Wow.
At least as far as being listed as a casualty and sent to a hospital. Now that doesn't mean he may not have gotten hit by a spent round and had a bad bruise, but it was never serious enough that he had to go to a hospital, etc.
Okay, so what happens to Schofield after Gettysburg?
He will be promoted, become an officer, go back into the line to Company C, and fortunately, because he's now an officer, he is allowed to get a furlough. And so in '64, he will request a furlough to attend the funeral of Colonel David Ireland, whose staff he has been serving on as the brigade commander. So it's interesting. Don't see that very much, but going home, and of course he's going to visit home.
That talks about the esteem the regiment has for Colonel Ireland.
Yes, very well respected. Quite a bit of information about his funeral and everything else. Schofield will then come back to the service, serve the rest of the war, Interestingly, when you look at soldier service records, they muster out most of the time in the summer of 65, when the war is over. But a lot of times, the last time they've been paid is a lot earlier. When he mustered out in 65, he had last been paid on June the 30th, 1864.
What does he do after the war?
Before the war, he had listed that he was a railroad clerk, so he's going to go back into the railroad business. He will be a conductor, part of the career. He will get married, have a couple kids, and eventually file for a pension. And the pension office doesn't have a record of his death. So when we were researching him and trying to find out when and where did he die, we came up with a blank. Unfortunately, that happens with soldiers, as opposed to someone that there's a nice website now that says find a grave, and you can go there, and a lot of times you get the obituary from the local newspaper and everything else. We had zero luck trying to find Schofield, which is kind of, with a name like that, you would think it would somebody, but so far nobody's put in.
Well, the really fascinating thing for me is not only the story of him. I've had a chance once in my years in the living history hobby to portray the 137th, but this man, in some small way, because of that CDV that you care for, is back where he fought at Gettysburg.
And it's one of the kind that's really nice, because on the back of it, he wrote.
What did he write?
Yours truly, William A. Schofield, 1st Lieutenant, 137th New York, 3rd Brigade, 2nd Division, 20th Army Corps. And of course, that's after they had gone west, and the 12th Corps and 11th Corps had combined and become the 20th. Okay. So that helps a lot on your research, being able to get that information. And it's his writing. And it's typical, no, I shouldn't say it's typical, it's not uncommon to find this on the CDVs, because they were calling cards. They were given to people as souvenir. I don't like to use the word souvenir. Keepsakes maybe is a better word.
Let's sort of wrap up Schofield here for today. What are you left with now that you've spent time with him and researching him? What thoughts do you have about him?
He's typical of many soldiers who start out as privates or corporals, do well, get promoted. Fortunately for him, he doesn't get sick and he doesn't get wounded, but goes through the war, serves these 4+ years almost, and goes home and continues his life. We tend to not think about the fact that some of them are going to live a long time, and they've got the rest of their life. Now, the ones who get hurt, obviously that's a different perspective. But to me, he's typical, and that's part of what we've tried to do in the book, in all the books, is we try and focus on the individual soldiers and what's happened to them over the course of their service on the field. And then, as part of the book, we have detailed maps, so you can take the photo, take the book, and come out here on the field and read about him and read a little bit more about the combat, what they were facing while you're here by the monument.
Joe, that's a great way to leave it. Thank you very much. It's wonderful. We have a great time with Matt. It's wonderful to have you on with us on the channel. So thanks for being with us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you for spending time with Civil War Digital Digest. We talk about a connection. Well, Sergeant Major Schofield, in a small way, came back to Gettysburg today, and we're proud to film this while working with Joe and Matt about their new book. It's a connection to history. Find yours, find a place, come here to Gettysburg. We'll see you next time.